Now, there's every studio, every distributor in the country wanted the picture. They all wanted it. But when the legal department saw the picture, they said,
"You have to make yourself a sympathetic character. Somebody has to be rooted for."
Imagine you're cleaning out the house of the kindest man who ever lived. You know the one. The guy who looked right into the camera and told millions of children, "I like you just the way you are." You open a small wooden drawer that hasn't been touched since 2003, and inside is a single envelope. On the front, in his perfect handwriting, it says, "To be opened only after I'm gone." Your hands start shaking because you already know this letter isn't for the world, it's for God. And when you finally read it, you will never see Mr. Rogers the same way again. Hi, friend. Come sit with me for a minute because what I'm about to tell you is going to hurt your heart in the best possible way. Most of us grew up thinking Fred Rogers woke up every morning already perfect. That his soft voice, his gentle smile, his red cardigan, they were just who he was. But the truth is so much deeper and so much more beautiful. Fred Rogers was gentle because he had to fight every single day not to break. And the letter in that locked drawer proves it. Fred Rogers came into this world on March 20th, 1928, in a huge mansion in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. His family was rich. His dad owned factories. They had heated floors, an elevator inside the house, servants, everything. But little Fred spent most of his days completely alone. His dad was always working. His mom was busy with charity. And Fred was the chubby, shy kid who got sick all the time. When he was 2 years old, he got measles and scarlet fever at the same time. Doctors said many kids didn't survive that. Fred's fever went over 104 degrees for weeks. He hallucinated. He couldn't move. And the only person who stayed with him every single day was his mother. She sat by his bed and taught him to play little melodies on the black keys of the piano because his fingers were too weak for the white ones. She told him each black key was a different feeling. Happy, sad, scared, lonely. That piano became his very first friend. When Fred was little, he couldn't tie his shoes. He couldn't button buttons. Doctors said he had something called dyspraxia, that his hands and brain didn't talk to each other right. One doctor even told his parents to send him away to a special home. But his mom refused. She hired a lady named Margaret who brought puppets to therapy. Margaret would put the puppet on Fred's hand and make it dance, and slowly, Fred's fingers learned how to move. In just 6 months, he got 300% better. He wore Velcro shoes until he was 12, but he never forgot that puppets saved him. That's why Daniel Tiger and King Friday and Lady Aberlin exist. They weren't just characters. They were medicine. At school, kids were mean. They called him Fat Freddy and Squeaky because his voice was high. One day, 3 big football players shoved him into a locker and left him there. Another time, they poured chocolate milk all over his piano music while he was playing for the whole school. Fred started seeing a counselor. He cried in the bathroom. He wanted to disappear. But instead of getting angry, he went up to the attic and made sock puppets talk to each other for hours. He gave every puppet a different feeling because he needed to know he wasn't the only one who felt scared or left out. When he was 9, his little brother Jim was born, and Fred was so jealous he hid the baby's bottles and stopped talking for 6 whole weeks. He only wrote notes. Some of the drawings he made were dark and scary. He felt terrible about it for the rest of his life. Years later, he said, "I finally understood that every child deserves to feel like they are the most important person in the world, because I once felt like I wasn't even seen." And then there was the train. When Fred was 3, a real train crashed just 400 yards from his house. 47 people died. Fred stood at the window and watched. His dad told him they were just sleeping, but Fred found the newspaper and read the truth. That night, hesked his mom. Why do people get hurt when they're just trying to go somewhere? He never forgot that question. He spent his whole life trying to answer it for every scared kid who ever wrote to him. High school was hard. Fred got bullied every day. He missed half the year because of terrible hay fever. While he was stuck at home, he wrote his first full piece of music, a complicated string quartet that was 247 measures long. When he finally played it for his classmates, they laughed and called it funeral music. Fred just smiled and kept writing. That piece is still saved in his archive today. His dad didn't understand him at all. Mr. Rogers Sr. wanted Fred to take over the family business, be tough, make money. Fred wanted to play piano and make puppets talk. One time, Fred broke a window practicing puppet moves, and his dad punished him by banning piano for a month and making him work in the steel yard. Fred's hands got so blistered he couldn't play when he finally got the piano back. On his 17th birthday, his dad gave him a choice: stop the puppet nonsense or leave. Fred left and never looked back. College saved him. At Rollins College in Florida, he met a girl named Joanne who smiled at him like he was already special. They fell in love slowly and carefully. Fred proposed by writing her a letter because he was too shy to say it out loud. She lost the letter running to the payphone to scream yes. They got married in 1952 and stayed married for 51 years. Joanne was the only person Fred ever let see him cry when things got too heavy. After college, Fred got a job at NBC in New York. He thought he had made it, but then he saw what children's television really was: grown-ups throwing pies in each other's faces, making kids laugh at people being hurt. After only 6 weeks, Fred quit. He said, "I can't do this. This isn't love." He went home to Pittsburgh and started something brand new. In 1954, on a tiny budget of $150 a week, Fred and his friend Josie made the Children's Corner. The studio was falling apart. Fred had to run from the puppet stage to the organ and back again while the show was live. He wore sneakers because he was always running. The night before, the very first show, the station manager handed him an old sock and said, "We need a tiger." That night, Fred made Daniel Tiger. He voiced 13 puppets all by himself, making up the words as he went. He built the tiny red trolley with tweezers and glue for $18. One day, he worked so hard he passed out on the studio floor. In 1968, he started Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Critics hated it. They said he was too slow, too soft, too boring. Some called him creepy. Ratings were terrible. But Fred didn't change a thing. He looked right into the camera and spoke to one child at a time, the one who felt alone, the one who was scared, the one whose parents were fighting, and slowly, millions of children started writing back. He saved PBS with 5 minutes in front of the Senate. He sang a little song about what to do when you're mad, and a tough senator cried and gave him $20 million for children's television. He put his feet in a pool with Officer Clemens, a black man, in 1969 when some places still had signs saying white people only. Some TV stations in the South refused to air it. Fred didn't care. He answered every hate letter himself. When a close friend killed himself, Fred fell apart. He wrote an episode where a puppet gets a letter from God about grief. The producers didn't want to air it. Fred said they had to. It became one of the most important episodes ever. He swam 3 miles every morning at 5:30, could bench press 200 pounds, did 100 push-ups a day, but never told anyone because he didn't want kids to think he was pretending to be gentle. He weighed exactly 143 pounds for 30 years. 4 to 3. I love you. He turned down a $1 million toy deal because he didn't want King Friday on a lunchbox. He said the space between the television and the child was holy. He wrote 13 children's operas. He wrote almost 900 episodes with his own hand. He answered every single letter a child ever sent him, sometimes thousands a week. And every year on his birthday, after everyone went to bed, Fred sat alone at his desk and wrote a letter to God. He asked the same questions every time. Am I doing enough? Does any of this really matter? Are the children truly safer because of what I'm doing? Am I failing them? He sealed each letter, put the year on the front, and locked them in a small drawer in his study. He told Joanne, "Please don't let anyone read these while I'm alive. I don't want them to think I ever doubted." There are 33 letters, one for almost every year he was on television. When he was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 1998, he kept working. He filmed episodes while going through chemo. He lost 40 pounds but wore padding under his sweater so children wouldn't worry. When he was so sick he could barely stand, he still looked into the camera and said, "You've made this day special just by being you." His very last recording was in December 2000. He could hardly walk, but he sang one more song and said goodbye to the trolley. That trolley he built with tweezers when he was broke. He looked at it like it was an old friend and whispered, "You've always been so special to me." Fred Rogers died on February 27, 2003. He was 74 years old. After the funeral, Joanne finally opened the drawer. The last letter was dated March 20th, 2002, his 74th birthday. It said, "Dear God, I'm tired now. My body hurts all the time. But every morning I still wake up wondering if today I will get to help one more child feel less afraid. If I have done that even once this year, then every single hard day was worth it. Thank you for letting me borrow your children for a little while. I hope I gave them back to you braver than I found them. See you soon. Love, Fred." Joanne cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Then she folded the letter, put it back with the others, and locked the drawer again. She once said, "He never thought he was good enough. That's why he worked so hard to make sure every child knew they were." That's the chilling truth we all needed to hear. The kindest man who ever lived spent his whole life being kind because he was terrified he wasn't kind enough. He never felt like he deserved the love he gave away so freely. And the letters in that locked drawer are proof that the most gentle soul on television was also the one who needed gentleness the most. So the next time you feel like you're not doing enough, remember the man in the red sweater who changed the world one child at a time and still went to bed every night wondering if he had done anything that mattered at all. You matter. You are enough. And Fred Rogers would be so proud of you for just trying. If this story made you cry the way it makes me cry every single time, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who grew up with Mr. Rogers, or with a parent, or with a teacher, or with anyone who needs to remember that being kind is the bravest thing you can do. Subscribe and ring the bell, because I promise you there are more stories coming that will heal the little kid inside all of us. Thank you for watching. And remember, I like you just the way you are. I'll see you in the neighborhood.